Thanks for logging on again to Wayne.com for another edition of Inside the Zone. Touchdown Tommy Davis joining us, as always, from the News Sentinel. And we've got sectional play. Seems like we were just talking about week one a few weeks ago. But we're talking about sectional football. And heading into this week, some interesting matchups. Obviously, last week we saw Dwenger versus Lures. We saw the NHC shake out exactly as you thought, which carries some momentum into the postseason. But when you talk about 5A and you look at Sectional 3, the brackets, the one game that's going to jump out at you has got to be Snyder at Kokomo.
Well, it is a good game on paper, but it's not an actual good game on the field. Snyder is 6-2, Kokomo's 9-0, but Kokomo does not play the schedule that Snyder plays, not even close. And last year that showed, and the two teams met here in Fort Wayne, and Snyder beat them 42-7. Now, Kokomo, they're ranked 7th in the state. They're undefeated at 9-0. They do score points, 42 points a game, but they're not going to be able to do that against Snyder. I really look for Snyder to win their 4th straight sectional championship.
When you take a look at the NCC, the kind of comparison between the SAC, I mean, it's really not even close. And I'm not trying to disparage the NCC. It's more of a tip of the cap to the SAC.
You're calling a spade. And, you know, that shows when Huntington North plays Homestead every year. Homestead dominates that series. I believe they've won 15 of the last 16. They're going to win 16 of the last 17 as soon as they meet in the sectional. And so, you know, the North Central Conference is a great basketball league. Kudos to them for that. But it's not the SAC when it comes to football. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, and well, you see you've got Snyder at the bottom of the bracket, Homestead at the top. Do you see this is coming down to Homestead versus Snyder when it comes to the sectional championship?
Absolutely, and those two teams will be really interesting because you have the Snyder defense, which has been pretty strong. Homestead's offense is potent as can be, so it'll be a fascinating matchup once that gets to the championship round.
Yeah, I see this. You know, they've met many times in the sectionals in the last decade, and I see this year perhaps as one of the closest in terms of what they've been able to do in the regular season and what they have offensively when it comes to Homestead, because Zach Terrell is so much better than it seems like Snyder's gotten out of the quarterback play so far this year, although those guys, Riley Jordan and Darren Barbour, are continually improving.
Oh, Snyder's getting better in all facets of the game every single week, but I tell you what, I have to be careful not to fall into the trap is, and I did this with the Lures-Dwenger game. There's a reason that Dwenger has beaten Lures 6 straight times now, and there's a reason that Snyder generally beats Homestead, is they're a better program. So, yeah, part of me wants to say Homestead's up this year, Snyder's down a little bit. It'll be a really competitive game, and maybe it'll play out that way, but we have to be really cautious about that because historically Snyder has shown that they can dominate Homestead.
And one of the teams that's always been dominant, you take a look at 4A Sectional 11, Bishop Dwenger versus Northridge. That's a Saturday game at Zollner because Concordia plays there on Friday. Columbia City's in this bracket. East Noble's in this bracket. That's who Dwenger's probably going to play in the second round if they beat Northridge, which they should. Is this Dwenger's bracket to lose, or can East Noble and Columbia City, when they play them, be competitive with the Saints?
Well, I think it is Dwenger's sectional to lose. Obviously, they showed how good they were last week in dominating, particularly along the offensive line over Bishop Lures and winning the Battle of the Bishops. Yes, Dwenger should win this, but keep in mind, East Noble has a bye week. That's a week where the coaching staff can go and watch Dwenger play. They can see him in person. They can take notes. They can an extra week to prepare for Dwenger. Dwenger's got to worry about their first opponent, and then they can worry about East Noble. East Noble has nothing to do but focus on Dwenger for a couple of weeks. And when you give a great coach a bye week, generally they are very successful. I'll use an example in the NFL. Belichick and Andy Reid are 19-0 off bye weeks in their last 19 games. That tells me that you give a good coach a bye week and he can put together a game plan that causes problems. Obviously, Coach Depew has been around the block a couple of times, and he's a great coach. And so I don't want to absolutely guarantee that Dwenger can get past East Noble because I think East Noble, who has shown they show up every single week this year and play well, could give them some problems. But, yeah, if you're asking me where I'm laying my money, it's on Dwenger.
Yeah, 2 years ago at Zollner Stadium, I remember East Noble and Dwenger meeting in the first round. And, boy, East Noble gave them a heck of a battle, and they're a better team now than they were a couple years ago. And Chris Depew obviously knows how to get his team ready to face the Saints. Let's move on to Sectional 4A. 4A Sectional 12, I should say. as far as local matchups, I think the one that draws the most interest is Delta at Wayne. Teams have had to go down. Southside, a very good team last year, had to go down to Delta and got jobbed on a couple calls. Let's be honest, last year. Delta comes in 8-1. We know about Wayne. They've beaten everybody in the SAC except the Big Three. What do you see in this game as being key?
Well, generally I say that the SAC teams are better than the out-of-market teams like a Delta or Marion or Huntington North or what have you, but not in this case. Delta is good for a reason. They've won at least 8 games for 13 straight years. They have a phenomenal coach in Yorktown grad, Grant Zagunda.
Oh, yeah, you got to get that in.
I do have to get that in. Grant is an outstanding coach. Absolutely. Go Tigers. But Wayne is a very strong program, but they're not strong enough to beat Delta, even though the game is up here and Delta has to bus all the way up here for that. The Delta defense, they only average 9 points a game is what they allow. They're going to cause problems for Wayne. This has been a great year for Kyle Beauchamp to kind of lay his foundation with the Wayne program, teach his philosophy, how it differed from the previous coaching staff, and they've had a really successful year. I think they'll have a very, very difficult time to knock off Wayne.
Are you concerned, though, that the Hoosier Heritage Conference, as we always kind of compare conferences, I mean, that's, again, it's not up to the SAC level, and, Delta didn't even win that conference.
Right. I understand all that arguments, but traditionally Delta is much like Snyder, very dominant program, and they give Fort Wayne teams problems outside of Dwenger. They always seem to stub their toe against Dwenger, but now they don't have to worry about that being in a different sectional initially. But like I said, Delta has won 130 games in the last 13 years. It's a tough program, and they'll show that against Wayne.
The Fighting Zagundas. We'll have to see on that one at Wayne Stadium Friday night. In 3A Sectional 18, not a lot of local teams, so we're going to jump over that and get into 3A Sectional 19 because Leo at Norwell, that's a rematch of Week 1, and that game was at Leo with the Lions winning 34-6. Norwell's played some tougher teams in the last stretch. The last 2 weeks they've played Homestead and Columbia City back-to-back, so they've played some tough teams as we head to the playoffs. Can they make it closer than 34-6? Can they beat this Leo team with it being at the Courtyard? Always a tough place to play?
Yes and no. They can make it closer, but they're not going to beat Leo. Leo's been a team that's been focused all year. They knew what they wanted to do when they started this season. They won the ACAC. Their only loss is a last-second, last-play loss to a 4A team that ended up being 6-3 in Lebanon at Lebanon this year. Leo is on a mission this year. They're going to win their first sectional since 1995 if they can get past number 1 ranked Eastbrook in the championship game. But they're not going to have any problems with Norwell initially.
Yeah, I was going to ask you a question about the toughness of this sectional because last year you had Rod Smith at Harding. Concordia had a better season last year. Eastbrook was good last year. Belmont was better last year than they are this year, at least record-wise. Norwell had Fichter, so they were playing well. I mean, this was a very juggernaut as far as the sectionals go. Does this give Leo a better shot to win this sectional this year, the way that things have kind of played out in the graduation has hit teams?
Well, it does in that I think they have a pretty easy path to the championship game. It's not like they'll have a tough opening round, a tough second round, and then they have to play number 1 Eastbrook after they've been beat up for 2 weeks. I think that it does help Leo to a degree because they won't face such difficult schedules getting there. But the Eastbrook game is that's looming. They're number 1 in the state, and they're number 1 for a reason. So that'll be very, very difficult. Harding is down a notch this year. I don't foresee them giving anybody a problem in that lower part of the bracket. So this is going to be Leo and Eastbrook in a couple of weeks.
I'm not going to discount Heritage in the second round, though. Heritage and Leo, man, they play tough games. Heritage is always up when they play the Lions.
But I have confidence in the Lions.
All right, as well you should. Jared Souter doing a great job there.